let's plunge into the depths of the watercolor ocean, shall we? We're going to start with some bright pink, some hot pink, or the pinkest that we can find. And I don't think that there is what you would call a hot pink there. So let me see. What about another colour? What about some permanent rose to add to the Kuretake? This is De La Rowney, actually. Very old tube paint, definitely needs to be used up. So let's see, what do we get when we mix that with some water? Yeah, not bad. And I'm going to add a more bluish red to that, just to make it a little bit more, I don't know. So let's get started with some nice, we'll leave some spaces and just think flowers. And let's go back in with some orange. This is probably a good way to relax. I think don't be too precious about it. Don't worry. Don't listen to the rattling of the paints. Let's put some yellow in the middle here, shall we? And we might paint over part of that. So I'm going to do a fairly big chunk there, and then we'll put some yellow with some red next to it and let that sort of bleed. And then you just do whatever, because we're going to doodle over the top of this anyway. So now let's find a nice bright green, maybe, and put that there, and a darker green, perhaps. Just putting strokes, sort of anyhow, really. Some darker red here. Whatever you feel is making a good pattern. That's the thing. Blue, we want some blue. Let's have some ultramarine, shall we? And let's put that in here. And maybe make it darker with some Prussian. And we don't want it to get too dark, so I'm going to come in with some cadmium orange. Try and keep it reasonably clean, the colour. So are we thinking about plants, flowers, jungles? Look at these lovely swirls that we're getting there. Let's have some nice forest gump green. Maybe we'll put some forest over here too. And I'm leaving some whites here and there. Come on, forest, let's get a bit more of you in there. And one thing to remember when you're doing this kind of painting is not to worry about having to wash your brush out in between the strokes, because some people are, they don't want to waste the paint, but you have to sometimes just let it go, right? This is a nice maroon colour here. I think. I probably should have wetted it first before I started. And maybe clean the brush and come back with some more orange, perhaps down the bottom here. Maybe. And then perhaps some nice bright green. And how about some of this pink? Perhaps mixed with a bit of permanent rose. Put some of that here. It's nice and opaque. And my mixing water, my cleaning off the brush water is getting very dirty. Let's put some orange in here. I've never used so much orange in my life as I have since I acquired these paints. The orange is the first one that's going to disappear. Here's a very nice bright red. I like the paints to bleed, but not necessarily. Which one was that? That was this one, wasn't it? Yes. That is called, strangely enough, red. And it is. Look how that contrasts with the green. And where you touch the colours that are wet, you get these amazing bleeds, look. And then I'm going to put a large purpley pink circle here. And maybe over the other side, some yellow perhaps joining on here, maybe some kind of circle there too, perhaps. And perhaps we'll come back here with some more blue. And then green. Well, that's a nice colour, isn't it? I defy anyone to do this and not enjoy the application of these colours to the paper. I'm going to put some more green up here, and I'm going to leave some space and then put it down here as well. Okie dokie, so now we'll let that dry and we will come back for step 2. Okay, so that's dry, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some black with my brush, and I'm going to just kind of outline a few of the shapes, partially outline, just to put some darks in. And I don't know exactly what I'm going to do here yet, so bear with me, because this is all kind of experimental. But what I probably am thinking is that where some of the lines are blurred, but I don't really particularly like the blurs, that gives me an opportunity to just go over them with a nice, dark, emphatic line. So you can do that. And as you start to do this kind of thing, you'll sort of get an idea of what you want to achieve. This is abstract. Okay, so we've done a few lines, so maybe I want a couple of circles, or maybe I'll go round these circles, or one of them, part way round perhaps. You could, at this point, start thinking, yeah, it's a kind of, is there an organic feel here? Is this a plant? Is this going to be leaves? I'm not very keen on this bit here, but what I could do, I could outline it something like that. And what I don't want to do is to spoil the nice lights. So wherever I put my dark lines, the idea is that they are going to benefit, that it is going to benefit. So you can sort of put a dark line between the pink and the green so that the pink shows up more, for example. You know, this is where you as a creator are going to start thinking, not thinking, but feeling the painting calling to you. All right? Seems to be raining. I better let the dog in. Zen? Yeah? Arthur, come on. Raining. There's a good boy. Come on. That's it. And maybe here. Okay, so I'm going to leave that now, and let me think. What am I going to do next? Sometimes when you get to this point, if you're doing something like this, it sort of starts to say, oh, look, here's a fish, and oh, look, here's another fish. I could turn this into a picture of fishes, but we don't really want to do that, I don't think. So what I'm going to do, because this is just a really good way of spending an afternoon, I'm going to take my pencils and I'm going to add some texture to some of these colours. This is an orange. And we could put some orange in here. We can also use the, this is a maroony colour, we can use the colours to emphasise the edges of some of our shapes. So just to come in at the edge and go round, and you get an interesting effect. So you will get texture this way, because the paper has a texture to it. And if you want to, you can wet it a bit in places to make it darker, and you get more texture then. See? And we could come up here with yellow and go over what's underneath. Go around. Put the yellow over the green and you can tone it down, link the colours together. And so on. You could most definitely spend quite a lot of time on this. And then you can make shapes. You could start to do circles, interlinking circles. The sky's the limit, really. And where you've got something there's always the possibility of taking it off if you don't like it. So this is quite what's the word? Enjoyable. Just basically scribbling. We could start to grow flowers if you felt that flowers were appropriate. You could do those with pencil, like that. And, whoops, then you could take your brush and you can partially wet it. Don't wet the whole thing, just partially. Do that. And we could have some more flowers down here, for example. Could make them break the boundary. When you wet them, they get very excited. Quite nice. We could take a dark green and we could think of this one, for example, as being a leaf. I tend to always come back to nature. So if that's going to be a leaf, wet it a little bit. This could be part of a leaf too. And I suppose this one could be as well. We could just take the lighter green. Ba-dum. Maybe, let me see. Well, I suppose we could go to a purple. What's that? That's bark. Let's going to be brown. What's this? That's black. It's going to be this one, sea blue. How about indigo? Indigo's blue, isn't it? No, I don't want that. Oh, that's brown. It's going to have to be that one. No, I don't want to put anything there. Maybe here. And I'm wondering whether a narrower line would be a good. Could be, couldn't it? And down here. Sometimes painting and drawing is a fairly silent occupation, isn't it? You don't always want to talk while you're doing it. I'm going to try going around some of the shapes, and I think actually I might use white. I'm quite liking that though, so I think I might go back to what my original idea was, which is to just put shapes over using the pencil. So I'm sort of focusing on the idea of irregular ovals. Like that, and then we have the pen, and then just going round them. Somehow that seems to do the trick. And we've got blue up here, haven't we? Have I got a blue? Is this a blue? Sea blue. Yes, so let's work on this one and do what we did down here a little bit. So we want to put some blue in, sort of random scritchies going over the edges a bit. And join the blue to the green. So where you put the blue over the green, it just makes a darker green. And then if we go for, I haven't got that many colours actually. I think I might get, I don't know, I have got some other, I've got Tamsin's set, but I don't want to ruin them completely, and I think I will. I've got a big set of Faber-Castell in a nice box and everything, but I'm a bit rude with her possessions. I do tend to forget. That I'm using somebody else's stuff. Right, so we'll just use the paintbrush a little bit, just to, like I did on the other one, just to darken up parts of it. Gives us a nice texture. And then maybe with the orange, we'll come down here too. You have to keep an eye on it to make sure that you don't make it messy, you know. Okay, let's come in here. These look like already pre-existing flowers, so we'll just go between the petals and get yellow petals. There we are, and I have a feeling I need some more leaves. Let's find the dark green. I'm getting completely in a mess with my pencils here, but should we put a leaf here? And I need the light green. The brush. Where's my brush? There it is. When you go over the watery parts, it's always dark. Oh, no, that's not true then. Okay, so it lifts it slightly. That's interesting. If you make it wet. That is interesting. So if I was to make that wet and then scraped it with a sharp implement of some sort, like a knife. Does that actually? Yes, it does. Oh, yes. Excellent. So scraping into the pencil gives you the opportunity to lighten, to lift. Ah, interesting. I could do it there too. So I could come in and, whoops, make sure that's clean. Interesting. I didn't know you could do that. So I could lift part of that, for example. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, now I think I'm going to dry that and come back and see what's going to be done next. Interesting, isn't it? Well, I've dried it and I'm going to finish with the pencil side of things, and I'm just going to emphasize some of the colors here on the side and unify them a little bit. So basically this is permanent rose, and I'm going to go over the color that I had there, which is still going to give me a variety of colors, but it also gives me an opportunity to break into it a little bit. And so I think I'm going to Just emphasize that bit with a bit more red. Maybe put a bit more red up here. And perhaps bring some darker red down into this. I sort of think that wants to be, that was a tentative spiral. So I'll just strengthen that a bit. And I think I want to strengthen these blues down here. Make this a bit darker down here. Okay, and this here as well. Sometimes when you feel you've done something wrong or that you're not sure about, you can just add some more water and then take a tissue or a piece of paper towel and just press into it, and you can lift it out again, okay? So you're not committed forever and ever. Sometimes you get a really nice patchy sort of irregular result, which you can say to yourself, that's what I wanted, actually. Okay, I think I'm going to put some gold on. So let me find my etcher set, mainly because it's the one that softens up quickest. So I'll get some water. I usually use a little syringe to put the water in. And let's just go along here. I don't know which colours I'm going to use. I'm pretty random about these things. And I need a smaller brush, and I'm not going to use one of my best brushes. I always think it's a good idea to whoosh your paints with a brush that's not too new. And let that sit a minute, and I'll just dry this off so that it's in good shape for the colour to go on top. So, I don't know really. I'm going to try to find a nice dark gold. Am I going to try and find a nice dark gold, or am I going to go with a lighter gold? I want it to show up. And so just thinking, because unless something's got some nature features in it, doesn't seem quite right to me. So let's put in some leaves, and we can go around the outside edge of them with pen as well if we want to. just to sort of show it up a bit. You don't have to do that. You can, and you can go on the vein. You can do the veins on top as well if you want. You can just do cross hatching like that. That's another thing. Maybe I'll do that down here. I'm just really sort of scratching into it. It's probably another pen that's going to bite the dust. Come on, you can survive. Start breathing again. Okay, and right, so a bit more gold. What about putting some gold veins in this one? What about some circles, maybe? I'm going to put leaves on here too. So call this a stem. And then maybe no, I don't like any of that. I don't want any of that. I'm going to see if I can get rid of it. Oh well, that's gone. I don't think this brush is working very well, said the bad workman, blaming his tools. Maybe what we needed to do was to do something on the black. Yeah, maybe. Don't like that either. Going to cover that up. Looks like a strawberry, which is somewhat out of place. Having done that, now I think it should be a different colour. Maybe the forest green. Need to do something here. So going to be bold. Let's put some more pink. That's better. Isn't it? Much better. Yes, I think it needed this red line to link the whole thing together, and I think I'm going to take that all the way up to there. Okay, there's just one thing I need to do, which is, since I've got a gold branch there, I need another somewhere else. So maybe here. Maybe we can just... I don't know what's the matter with these stupid brushes at the moment. Nobody wants to be pointed. There's no point in a brush with no point, is there? Let's try again. That's better. Okay, so that complements that. The leaves on both sides. A little bit of gold down here. The reds are connected all the way through. The colours are clear. We've got nice lot of texture here and here. I think I'm going to stop now. It's not a work of art, but it is abstract. It is completely out of my head. Today I am going to try to paint out some feelings. I'm not going to attempt to paint any particular thing, but I'm going to try to get rid of some shadows that are hanging over me at the moment. Nothing to do with my own health or anything like that, thank goodness, not at the moment. But a few things have happened just recently to people I know and to me, and it's upsetting sometimes. So I know everyone feels like this from time to time, so I'm going to ruin a piece of paper with some paint. And this is a sheet of Etcher, cold pressed watercolor paper. I've got a large round brush here and my Kuretake set, and I'm going to put colour on this piece of paper with nothing in mind. I've tried several ways of painting today. I've planned a few different videos that I'm going to hopefully make, and I have failed to be able to actually even start talking. So I decided I would do this instead. So I'm going to just put colour onto the paper, colours that appeal to me in my Kuretake set, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully, if nothing else, it'll cheer me up, and perhaps you too. we all have days, don't we, when things don't feel fair or right. And one of the things that's happened is that a friend of mine who's very elderly, he's 80, and he's a very strong and competent man, and he has, even though he's 80, he's still been working hard, and he has just had a car accident, and he hasn't been injured, but he has caused the injury of somebody else. A sheer accident. He wasn't really doing anything wrong, but things kind of got on top of him, and he crossed to the wrong side of the road. We're in France, you know. It's very easy to do. Anyway, so he's obviously really upset, and I think I'm upset as well. I didn't realise, but I think I'm upset on his behalf. I don't think he's to blame, and I think he's going to be really upset and hurt by this. So that's a sad thing. Life really is very difficult at the moment for so many of us. And I don't know what we did to deserve this. But we mustn't let it get us down, and we have to keep painting, because that's really all there is art. Art from the heart. And sometimes then when you see the beautiful greens and blues coming onto the paper, you feel better. Isn't that right? Finally, the sun has come out today, which is something. We've had, like everyone else, more than enough winter. It's like that this time of the year, doesn't it? I'm not thinking about this at all. I'm just allowing my brush to go wherever it wants. There's lots of indigo here, which I expect is not surprising. And I'm thinking I'll just cover this whole page with blues and greens, all smushed up together. And then I'll let it dry, and then we'll come in and doodle on top of it, shall we? And see what comes out of it. I don't know if I'm going to get backgrounds and things like that on here. Probably will. I'm just filling in all the spaces where the paint has pulled back from the paper, or where I missed it. Oh, there seems to be some damage on that piece of paper there. Oh, well, never mind, it'll be covered up by the doodling. So I'm not going to play with that anymore. I'll just let that dry, and I'll be back in a minute. So there we are, that's dry now, and the question is now what to do with that. Thing is, I don't know about you, but I think that for me, one of the most soothing images, one of the things that makes me feel at least reasonably peaceful is the leaf motif, so to speak. I don't know whether this is something that goes back to ancient history, sort of prehistoric times or something. The reassurance of knowing that there was something to eat because there were at least leaves growing on the trees. I don't know. But it is somehow a happy thing to see a leaf. And so that's what I need. So I'm going to put some leaf shapes on here first before I do anything else. And I'm just outlining them at the moment. I don't know why, really. And put a small one at the end. I had a greenfinch, a little bird, flew, it didn't help either, flew into the door of the studio today, into the glass door, and hasn't killed itself. I don't know if it's going to survive. I held it for a while in my hand to try and warm it up because it had gone completely passive, and I thought she was going to be dead. I thought she was going to die straight away, but after a while she warmed up, so we put her in a box and left her there for an hour or so, and then when we came back after lunch, she flew out of the box, and now she hasn't gone very far. She's just sitting on top of the rafters in the studio. I don't know whether she's going to be okay or not. I've thrown the cats out because you can't have cats in. Well, mind you, the cat couldn't reach her up there. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And so after that happened, last year we had on the door, it's a double door, a sort of French door thing, we had shapes of birds of prey, things, so as to make the birds keep away. And I had to take them off in the winter because they all peeled off. So I have now, slightly too late for this bird's best benefit, but I hope she's going to be okay. I put the birds back on the window. I'll show you. So now we have lots of green birds on the door, and there's Zen outside. And I'll take you just around the studio, and you should be able to see the bird up there. Not a very good picture of her, but she is there. Okay, right, that's a nice organic looking shape there. So bearing in mind that we're in that kind of a mood, perhaps we might want to paint some of these nice and dark like that. Perhaps not all of them, perhaps some of them, and then I can put some white embroidery over the top. Perhaps, let's see, you can always adjust the shapes a bit when you're doing the next stage if you don't like the shape that they've come out. Definitely one of those days today. You know when something is wrong when your hands shakes when you paint. Okay, so let's perhaps do sort of like half of those, something like that. I don't like that stem, it looks too straight. Hopefully I'll be able to make that a bit curvier. Okay, and then, well, this is dry in the background, so we ought to be able to do something with a pen, shouldn't we? So maybe while we're waiting for that to dry, perhaps I'll put some gold on these leaves here. Not sure what I'm doing really, but whoops. Oh, gosh. Yes, I know. It's always going to go wrong when you have a bad day. We'll cover that up later, and I'll try not to do it again. I'll tell you what I'll do. Just a sec. That's better. I think that's probably more or less dry now. Okay, so let's put some gold in here. This is quite a peaceful thing to do. forces you to calm down. And I think it's probably a good idea to, what's the word? Try to not think about the next thing that you're going to do, but concentrate on the thing that you're doing at the moment. But that's not always that easy, is it? You see, if I was a real artist, I would be doing all of these the same. But because I'm a dilettante, I don't really know what that means, but it sounds good. I tend to vary things as they go along. But it's not too bad, does it? Okay, and this one, let's put dots around the outside edge. This gold pen is very nice. This is the Sigmo gel pen, Uniball. And I don't understand why the white is so bad compared to the gold. The gold it flows beautifully. I don't understand really. The white is always reluctant, as we will see in uno minuto when I try to put some white on. But before we do anything else, let's think about what we're going to do next. There are quite a lot of things that we could do. Probably want to put a bit more paint on. The question is, am I going to put a different colour or more blue? Am I going to go for something like a purpley colour? Let's see. Piece of paper. Paper. Well, that's not screaming out to me. Too blue, I think. What about this one? No. What about dark brown? I don't think that's going to work. Oh no. What about more indigo? I think I'm going to do that. But what am I going to do with it? Make this a little bit darker. What am I going to do with it? I think I might just put some more lines on these leaves. Yes. Why not? Let's do that. I think I'm going to do some berries. Let's paint some circles of different sizes. Here and there, just to sort of break in. And I'm going to put my hand on it again if I'm not careful. Some lovely colours that have come out underneath here. That one's a bit too big. Never mind. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, it probably does. That's a nice area there, isn't it? That makes me think of another idea I've got, perhaps for the next video. I didn't feel like I could cope with a really new idea today, but I have got an idea, and I hope you will be watching over the next few days, and when I have a go at doing that. And I think I'm going to get some, I think I'm going to do some white circles, and I'm not going to use that silly white pen because it's just annoying. So I'm just going to squeeze out some white gouache, or white watercolor actually this is, I think. And just mix it with a little bit of water. And then I think, shall we do some flowers? Why not? Okay, just put them in the spaces. White daisies. I'll put one around here. There we are, and then perhaps we'll put some white areas on these. I can't remember whether I just said this or not. I was going to say the white will probably fade and dry lighter. And then I think I'll go back to the gold, and I'm going to put, this reminds me of embroidery when you do this kind of thing and you're layering marks. Oops, okay. So we've got that. Something else that we can do is to use one of these pens. You can use it to make shadowy lines. So we could do some spirals, and all it is just, this is, what does it call itself? Purple grey, and it will just give a shadow in the background. Just lets the colour underneath shine through. It's an interesting effect, isn't it? And you could do other things too. You could paint in some more leaves, so they're like more in the background. Like that, and building it up to make it so that it looks like you've done some work. What have you been doing all afternoon? Oh, nothing, I was just painting. So I think I've only used 3 colours here, the indigo and the forest green and the ultramarine, I think, and it's separated out into these nice colours. And if you want to go round your circles to give them a little bit of 3-dimensionality, you can go underneath them and make them stand out a little bit, because they've now got shadow underneath. If you want. These watercolor brushes are quite good. Quite like these. Okay, and maybe we need a little bit of white. Perhaps I'll use this. I'm not sure if it'll work. Come on, don't let me down. Yeah, okay, it's now going to prove me wrong and say I'm perfectly fine. I'm just as good as the gold. As good as gold. And then what else? Maybe we need a bit of white on the main leaves. Perhaps, I'm not sure. Maybe, yes, perhaps something like that, maybe, because there's enough room there to do little dots, isn't there? Okay, I mean, we could go on and just put a little bit more of a highlight on these. We might go too far if we're not careful. It's a point at which to take a photograph, actually. Take a photo of your work at this point and then go away, have a cup of tea, come back and see what you think when it's properly dry. So I think that's probably what I'll do. Today we're going to do a relaxing little journey. We're going to take a line for a walk. This is black, so black is black. Wasn't there a song? Black is black, I want my baby back. Who sang that? What with that and the wooden heart, I'm going to have everybody going, oh my God, I've got that stuck in my head now. Black is black. Was that the Rolling Stones? I think it was. Anyway, so I'm going to put some black on my brush And it doesn't matter how much you pick up because you can go back for more. And with this round brush, I'm going to draw a rectangle, freehand. Now this is great if you're an absolute beginner and you aren't very confident with your brush control. You can practice getting a line. Doesn't matter if it's not completely straight, really, it doesn't. But you can try as hard as you can to make it the same width all along. And that will practice you your control of the brush, so you feel more confident when you're trying to draw things like leaves and things. So there we are, a rough rectangle, and reload the brush a little bit, and then being careful not to smudge it. Pick a point on the outside edge, somewhere about a quarter of the way along one of the lines. You could start here or here, but well, you can start in the middle if you want. Start wherever you like. But I'm going to start here, and I'm going to take a line for a walk, and I'm going to make it thin and thick, and thin and thick. Replenish. It doesn't matter what your shapes are. Don't make them too small, perhaps. But also don't let them be too big. I think it's quite nice if you have some small ones at the edges. Don't think about it too much, just do it. But make it a continuous line. Okay, so although you have to go to get more paint, come back and start again from where you left off. So there we are. There is our design. And what you have to do now, because you don't want it to run, is you're going to have to dry it. So we'll get the hairdryer and whack that on. So that's dry now. And the next thing to do, this is the fun bit, or at least this is fun bit number one. The next thing to do is to make sure the brush is nice and clean, make sure the paint is dry. And looking at your Kuretake set, what I did when I did my trial one, I started off by picking the colour that I like best, I think, and that was this red. I quite like this red. It's a what do they call it? They call it Rose Madder Deep. That's a classic colour, isn't it? You can get that in any paint set, Rose Madder. Well, not necessarily in the sets, but you can definitely... Oops. Oh, I said I was going to do that. I knew I was going to do that. Never mind, all is not lost. Honestly, I'm such a klutz. Really, such a clumsy clot. But the other good thing about these paints is they don't tend to be too difficult to lift. So if you do make a mistake, if you do that, I thought it was dry. You see, you can't win, can you? You can't win. Oh well. When I first started doing these videos, before I'd watched very many of other people's, I thought everything had to be perfect. In the sense, not in the sense that my painting needed to be perfect, because I knew I could never do that. But that the presentation needed to be perfect and that mistakes weren't allowed, because a lot of people edit out all their mistakes. But I soon found out that that's too much trouble. I don't want to do that. So I don't do that. So anyway, I'm going to try to paint over here with this nice Rose Madder Deep. And the point of this exercise, this is an exercise, but it's fun and it's enjoyable. It's not boring. It's not just drawing lines. It's to practice brush control, pigment control, water control, and all of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use probably 5 colours on here, and I'm going to space them out. So I'll start with the red, and I'll put in, I don't know how many sections there are, but I'll put in the number that I feel is enough of this colour. And I'm going to do this colour first, and then I'll pick up a second colour. And it doesn't matter if you go over the black lines a little bit, but try not to go over them too much because it'll spoil the brightness of the whole thing. And this is, you think, oh, there's a water spot there. Whoa, that's going to lead to problems, isn't it? I can make that black again later. Thinking sort of, what do you call it? Stained glass window type of effect, or stained glass. And I'm putting the paint on fairly thickly, but I can promise you that it will dry pretty close to the colour that it goes on. And you have no idea. If you haven't been painting for long, you're so lucky to come into it at this stage when the materials are so much better than they used to be. Because when I first started doing watercolour, the colours that we had, we didn't have any of the quinacridone colours. Now you've got these synthetic colours, quinacridone gold, quinacridone purple, quinacridone reds and things. And they are very beautiful, clean, single pigment colours that are really nice to use. And we didn't have any of that. We just had cadmium yellow and lemon yellow. And like I say, you put them on the paper and they dried lighter and you were disappointed. And oh dear. But no, so now we are much more fortunate to have these wonderful colours. So now I'm thinking, what shall I do for the second colour? And I think I'm going to do a nice green, a nice strong green. And I'm going to put it here. This is a lovely green. This one is called, what did I just pick up? This one. This is Forest Gump Green. Forest Green. Forest Gump Green. Forest. Forest. Run, Forest, run. Watched that film recently. That's why it's on my mind. I watched it because this colour is called forest green, and when I saw it, I thought Forrest Gump, and then I thought, oh, I haven't watched that film for ages. I love Tom Hanks, the actor, don't you? Isn't he just? If I had to vote for somebody as being the best actor stroke person, and not bad looking either. I mean, he's not exactly what you'd call Rocky Stallone. Is that a person? But he's not even James Rockford, but he's nice, isn't he? Isn't he the sort of person? Well, he certainly is the sort of person I would have liked to have married. Anyway, he's lovely and he's a great actor and he's done some wonderful films. I remember when Philadelphia came out. It came out around about the time I was having treatment for breast cancer, and I wanted to watch that film because I loved the music in the theme tune, the music, whatever. But oh my God, I couldn't. I haven't ever. I've never watched it. I can't watch it now. I couldn't watch it then. It's just too sad. But I do believe it's a good film. On the other hand, Airport, was it called? Where he plays a man who arrives in an airport and they don't like his passport. He's come from a country that America has just cut off relations with, so they won't let him in and they won't let him out. It's such a good film. I think I've watched that one about 3 times. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reds and 4 greens. And so I'm going to put another green here, I think. This would be a very nice exercise to do if you have a little group. I'm thinking of Lucinda here, one of our ladies who runs a little art group from her house, I think. And this would be a wonderful exercise if you wanted something for everyone to do together that they could do while they were chatting around the table. I think this one would be very, very good for that. I'm going to go to purple now because I want all nice, rich, gem-like colours. I'm just checking that my camera's working and I've got everything in shot. Yeah, sorry, that should be a little bit further along there. If you notice a variation in the sound on the video, please forgive us. It's just that we're using an iPhone 13. I think it was when we bought it. It was the latest one, as it would be, wouldn't it? And most of the time, the sound is really good. But occasionally, especially when the light's poor, I think the processing power of the phone isn't quite enough to correct the colour and the sound. And it seems like it lets the sound go. So sometimes you'll notice a variation. The sound goes a bit echoey or it goes a bit quiet. We do try to correct it. Tamsin spends a lot of time trying to make it right. And most of the time she does. Occasionally it's too difficult and it's not her fault at all. And then the other thing is that I tend to move around a little bit too much, and I shouldn't. And we could use a lapel mic, and we've got one, but it's not actually as good. And then there's the ones that they use for podcasts, which we probably will buy one at some point, but they're quite expensive. And the thing is, you can't move around hardly at all without losing the sound. So, sorry, you have to be really careful what kind of microphone you use. Shall I put that there? Anyway, just apologies if there's any distortion or any quiet sections that we haven't managed to sort out. And yeah, this would be a lovely one to do if you run a group and you could all sit down together and you could all do your own thing, and then at the end, when you finished, you'd compare them, make a nice display. Because what we're going to do all of these sections, and then we're going to practice our doodling. It's Sunday morning here. What day is it today? No, it's not Sunday, it's Monday. Yesterday was Sunday. When you live where I live, you lose track of what day of the week it is. It's quite strange. I wonder whether I should put another one there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I've got 6 of those already, so we won't do that. And now I'm going to go for the orange. This orange is not my favourite colour normally, but I've used a lot of this cadmium orange, partly because it makes such good mixtures with other colours, I think, and I'm going to have to be careful there because I don't want that to run. And when you're doing a design like this, you want a contrast. You need, your jewel colours, and this is still another jewel colour, isn't it, really? Be careful. This is a good point at which you make sure that you try not to go over the line. I might leave that like that because I don't want it to run. But you want some bright ones as well as some darker ones. So this orange is a good one for that. And it's partially opaque. It's not completely opaque. If you use plenty of water, all of these colours go transparent and make nice washes, and they do blend well together. They mix and bleed and give you just exactly the same effects that you get with the traditional watercolours. One thing I'm thinking as I'm doing this, that if you wanted to be sure that your black wouldn't run, because it will occasionally melt a little bit if you touch it with something wet, you could use Indian ink for the lines. You could use a brush and dip it in India ink. And I'm thinking this one's too big. I'm going to make a correction here because I think I want to divide this one. So I'll just come down here. I probably shouldn't have done that straight down, but I did. So anyway, so we need another orange for contrast. And when I do the doodles, I like to do gold on top of orange because it gives a sort of brocade, embroidered kind of look, gold on orange, which is quite nice. And I think I'm going to have to put the hairdryer on again. Sorry, Tamsin. Okay, is that dry? Probably dry enough. So one more orange one, we'll put it here. You see, that's what I mean by the smudging. So it would be a good idea to use Indian ink for the black lines because that won't melt like that. And then the last colour that we're going to use, we're going to make a kind of bluish grey sort of colour. And this one here is indigo, it says. So we'll use that, and I'm going to do it reasonably light, this particular one. You could, of course, make an alteration and you could allow the colours to blend into one another. And I might do another one of these, allowing it to blend so that we could practice our bleeds and you know, wet in wet and stuff like that. So we're nearly there, and then the next thing to do, once we've filled in the last one, which we're just about to do, we're going to put the hairdryer on and give it a jolly good dry, because the reason being, the pens don't work on wet paper, on wet paint very well, and you'll find you'll spoil them. So if you're going to do doodling on top of this, which we are, just going over that, and I think I'll just go over this one too a little bit. Can correct any of your lines. I'm going to try and do that without it bleeding. Yeah. So I'm going to dry that now, and then we'll come back. And I mean, that's quite interesting and quite nice to look at as it is, isn't it? But in order to waste a bit more of our time, I'm going to doodle on it. So I'm going to turn you off for a sec and come back and doodle. Okay, so part 2 of this doodle adventure here, taking a line for a walk. In order to do the next stage, which is going to be doodles, I'm going to need these pens, which I mentioned before. And that's why I got this out. I knew there was a reason. Hang on. A page. Right, this one is Kuretake brush pen, and it's great because it's meant for calligraphy and other things. And as you press, it goes thicker, and you can do thick and thin, and thick and thin. And I'm absolutely hopeless at calligraphy, but I can do thick and it looks like a feather or a leaf. I can do thick and thin lines. So that's nice. I'm going to use that. This is a white one, and it's supposed to work. It's just plain white, and the kind of line that it gives is like that. I'm also going to use a gold one, which I think works much better than the white. I don't know why they can't make I like that. I don't know why they can't make the white work as well as the gold, but you know. So there's that, and then a plain black Pitt pen. I know I mentioned this before, but I just wanted to show you the lines that it makes. This is a bit darker than the Stettler or the, I never remember what they're called, these ones, Micron, Pigment Micron. This I actually think is a little bit more substantial. I quite like that. This is a crib sheet, if you like. This is a bunch of doodles that I did to give me ideas, as is also this. So when I'm doing one of these, I always have these nearby for those moments when you think, I just don't know what a doodle is. So I suggest that's a good idea to do that. And with this one that we're going to do now, I thought to myself, I would confine myself to doing a particular doodle in on a particular colour. So I thought I would start off with the brush pen. Just need a quick slurp of coffee. There are days when I drink too much coffee, and today's one of them. And I'm going to, hope you can see this okay. I'm going to do spirals thick and thin on here. So I'm just doing a spiral and I'm pressing harder as I come around one side. And then I'm going to vary them and have smaller one here and maybe a small, really small one there. These are very fun to do. I could do pages and pages of these. If you haven't got one of these pens, one of these brush pens, you're missing something. Because they make sort of like roses as well. You could use them to make roses. Yeah, I really like this. It's a very therapeutic thing to do. And tell you what else is therapeutic as well. You know, I've been mentioning recently about trying to find something nice to listen to any time of day, really. I mean, I think I said at bedtime, but it doesn't have to be bedtime. And, you know, basically I go to bed with Michael Seeley every night, and I have done for 8 years. I don't know if he knows it. But anyway, I do. And he puts me to sleep in no time, and I'm sure he would love to think that he did that. But during the day, it's nice to listen to things, and I'm so tired of the mania that seems to be going around the world at the moment, and I don't want to listen. And so recently, at lunchtime, we generally watch a bit of telly with our lunch, but it's not telly, it's videos on YouTube, and we've been watching just recently Frost, A Touch of Frost, which everybody in England knows, and maybe even in America, because I think they did sell it to America, and I won't say anything about the quality of it. But we were enjoying that. The first few seasons were really good, but just recently it's gone completely mad because it carried on till the early 2000s, and the difference in the way the acting is done over that period of time is just unbelievable. So we've stopped. I've stopped 2 seasons short of a full house, and I'm not going to watch it anymore because it's no longer pleasant. Okay, so I really enjoyed that, and now I'm going to take, well, the one I did earlier, this one, this is the one I did earlier. And I went over the black lines with white, but I don't think I'm going to do that this time. I'm not going to do that. I might do it at the end, but next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the black pen that's not got a brush pen thingy, what's it on it, and I'm going to do the next colour. And it's a bit of a what's the word? It's a bit of a commitment, because whatever I do on the first one, I'm going to do on the rest. So anyway, what I am going to do is I'm going to do a branch of leaves. I don't know whether this is strictly speaking a doodle, but that's what I feel like doing right now, this minute. So we bring this one up here, perhaps. And we have a couple of loose ones over here. I don't know about the vein line. I might go over that. I think I'm going to go over these leaves with gold, I think. Let's see what that looks like. If you have a shaky hand, you might not want to do this, but I guarantee that your doodles look really cool because they'll be nice and funky and shaky and lovely. Well, we have a new neighbour in the house opposite where Bella, the dog that we were trying to take care of, used to live. They moved out a little while ago. I think I mentioned that. I like that. I like that on the pale blue. So that's good because then I can go ahead and be quite confident about doing this one. They moved out. Sorry for the sniff. I don't know why I do that. It's not necessary. It's just an automatic reaction. I don't know why. So I noticed that on some of the videos the other day. I was watching this painful experience watching my own videos, but I did notice that I sniff occasionally. So do a lot of other people too, as a matter of fact. And it's not a good thing, and I'm going to try and stop it. I expect they teach you that in radio school, not 101, when you learn to be a disc jockey. I expect they say to you, no, do not breathe so loud. Breathe quietly, try to control yourself, and for God's sake, don't sniff, because it comes across really loud through the microphone. And it does, it's true. Just the slightest little inhalation of breath, and you do have to breathe. I mean, come on. But don't sniff. Whatever you do, don't sniff. So I won't sniff. Let's put some, I'll try not to anyway. I'll try not to be annoying. We have got a video which has got 3 little birds on it, and it's really nice. The painting is quite nice, and it's fun to do, and you might enjoy it. It's had 250,000 views now, which is I can't think of a word strong enough to describe my utter amazement at that. I would never have ever expected anything remotely like that to happen. However, it has, and I looked at it yesterday. It's still getting views. It's getting more views each day than new videos that we put up. So it's being shown a lot by YouTube, which is great. Thank you, YouTube. However, I watched it, and you should have a look at it because it's one of our earliest ones, and there's a shadow across the picture, which is really bad. I mean, there will be shadows. There always are. There will be. You will see them. This one might have one because we use natural light rather than using. Get rid of the question marks. We use natural light. We don't use artificial light, and so therefore sometimes there's a bit of a problem with the sun. It's not very obliging. Sometimes it misbehaves, and yeah. But anyway, this particular one, the 3 birds, which you probably have seen by now, actually. Is very shadowy. So I apologize for that. I didn't mean it to be like that. I'm going to put some dots around these leaves. This is only a suggestion that you do the same design in each color. So each color has its own design. So like the red has got these wonderful rose-shaped spirals, and this blue has got these leaves with dots and gold-scented leaves. But you could do a different thing in every single one. you wanted to. You could also use paint. If you use a thin, small brush, a size 3 or something like that, you could use paint to do the designs as well. So now, what am I going to do next? I'll tell you what, I'm going to do what I did on my practice one. On the gold, we're going to do floral shapes. So I'm just doing daisies like this, and along the outside edge we do part daisies like that, and just filling up the whole space with gold like that. And it's if there's spaces in between, you can put circles in. And I think this looks like brocade or something embroidered fabric. I really like the gold on the orange. Put another one in there. So all different sizes. You can do different sizes of very simple daisy flowers. All over your orange. It would look good on yellow too, I think. Okay, and oh yes, I was going to say about the new neighbours. We haven't met him yet, but it seems like it's just one chap who rides a scooter to work in the morning. He goes out at 6 o'clock. And we know that already because my husband was woken up by his scooter at 6 o'clock this morning. So that's okay. If he's just a single man on his own, he'll never be there, and he won't have a dog that we have to look after, which would be good. On the other hand, Tamsin is still feeding the neighbour's cats, because you remember a little while ago I told you that our neighbour, unfortunately, Remy, had died all of a sudden. Really a shock. I'm still amazed to think that happened, because I'd spoken to him just a day or two before, and he'd told me what terrible pain he was in with this terrible cervical problem he had. And he said to me, I'm taking opium pills now, and I'm worried about what that's going to do to me in the neck. And he said, but I have such terrible pain, I wake up in the night and I think I'm going to die. The pain's so bad. Oh my goodness. And he did. And I'm just, oh dear, he was such a nice man. Terrible. Really a shock. Anyway, he had 2 cats, and one of them is 14 or 18 or a good age and not particularly well, and the other one is younger. And his wife goes off to work on Mondays and doesn't come back till Saturday. So Tamsin is feeding the cats while she's not there. It's a bit of a... dear me, I don't know. Okay, so on now to the green, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put circles on here. Just bubbles like this, different sizes. And when you're doing this, you're gaining control over your medium, as well as realizing things about texture, how you create texture by putting pattern on a surface, and how that changes the overall effect of the colour, which is altered by the presence of line. Not only does it make it darker, but also gives it more depth. And if you come into this, once you've done the black circles of all different sizes, you can see it starts to look like, like bubble wrap or something like that, which actually does have a texture. And you're just trying to vary them and not do the same one twice. And this is very good practice for when you do a bigger painting, a landscape or something like that, and you want to make sure that you don't commit the error of inadvertent repetition, where you do the same thing more than once. So like you line up your trees equally spaced and all their branches are parallel to each other. That's a common mistake with landscapes for people who are, I mean, you can do it on purpose if you want, but it's not, generally speaking, considered to be a good idea to have all your branches on your trees going parallel, unless you're drawing a cartoon, of course. And it does take some effort to remember. See, I've done it there. That's what I'm talking about. When you do two exactly the same, and that will stick out like a sore thumb. It will. That's what happens when you talk about something and you're happily going along and you suddenly make that terrible mistake. See, a little bit too linear there, but it doesn't matter because this is only a doodle. It's very easy to do, though. It does require a certain amount of concentration. Very easy to make that mistake. Last one with this design on it. By now you should be getting the hang of doing large, small and medium circles in a more or less random way. So let's hope that that works. And you could come into those circles and you could, for example, fill in the little ones with gold. Just a little dot. And that's really fun. And you see how it lifts it? And the reason I chose these colors, these jewel tones, was because I knew that when I came to do the doodles, that the gold and the black and the white and everything would look better on the dark colors because it just kind of shows up better. And now I have to think what I'm going to do on the purple, because the purple's the last one, isn't it? So there we are, that's those. Now what am I going to do? What did I do before? I did black dots. And I haven't used any white, so I suppose that's what I should do. We've got spirals, we've got circles. Oops! Distract myself, go back to the dots. I missed one. What shall I do with the white? What shall I do? Maybe perhaps I'll just do some spirals, but just little ones. Totally different from the black roses. Stick down. If you have a go at this, I'd love to see them on Facebook. So if you can, share them on Facebook and maybe use the hashtag stained glass doodles or something like that. Hashtag stained glass doodles. And then I'll be able to find your painting. We should do that actually more often. So when you have a go, I'll know where to look for your version, because I do like to see everybody's paintings. Sometimes they inspire me to make a certain type of video or makes my art improve. So there we are. Those are the white mini spirals, and you could add gold dots to the middle, for example. You can just keep on embellishing, keep on going. You can just, do more and more and more. But I'll just do that. I'll just do gold centers. That makes me think of chocolates. You remember those hazelnut whirls that Cadbury's used to do? Used to love those when I was a kid. Remember hazelnut whirls? The trouble is nowadays Cadbury's chocolate tastes like wax. It's not the same as it used to be. We've got a lovely chocolate shop in Carre here, nearest town to us, and I bought my husband a box of chocolates from there for his birthday in January. And they cost about $40 for a couple of dozen chocolates, but they are much better than the ones that you get in the supermarket. So there we are. I'm sort of thinking that these need circles in them, but not everywhere. It's just some of them. Some of them need a circle. Just a few, maybe the darkest ones where the paint's gone a little bit darker. But you see how bright the colours are, how well it's dried. I don't have any particular axe to grind as far as Kuretake goes, and I'm sure they don't care whether or not I sell their or promote their paints. But I do think that if you're a beginner, I mean, they've been around for ages. They're just new to me. They're not new to everybody. A lot of people have had them for years. But they are much easier to learn to paint with because they're much, much more forgiving. They really are. And then the final thing that you might want to do, perhaps, is to embellish the lines. And on the first one I did them in white. But I didn't like that. So I am going to just put some dots around some of them to show you what I mean. And that kind of brings out the shape of each section a little bit. But I don't think I'm going to do it on all of them. I'm quite pleased with that, and I think you'll have fun doing that. It's really a lovely way to warm up, to have fun, to create something out of nothing. I mean, it was so easy, no pressure. Let's be random, shall we? Let's have a random moment. I'm going to just put the colours on in a way which is reasonably loose and pleasing, and try not to think about anything serious. Maybe I'll think about what I'm going to cook for lunch. Actually, I've already cooked it. The soup is maturing in the saucepan at the moment. Isn't it funny? Have you noticed that? How when you cook something the next day, it's often better than it was the day that you cooked it. I suppose the flavours just mellow a little bit. This is a very nice green. I love that colour. Sort of moss green, isn't it? And it looks really nice with that burnt orange. And I'm just wondering where my dark brown has gone, because I did have a darker... I thought I did. I think I might have used a brown from the Kuretake set. Did I? Did I? The other set, I mean. Hang on a minute. I don't want to mislead anybody. Yeah, I think I did. Okay, so this is a burnt umber colour, so I'm going to pop that in here. And, dear, never mind. There we are. So I do need a little bit of something a bit darker. And if it looks like I'm not making it up as I go along, it's because I did one earlier, which I quite liked, and I'm trying to get reasonably close to that. So that's why I'm being a little bit less than totally liberal here. I'm just, oops. Oops, that's dark. Oh, that is dark, actually. How did that happen? Yes. Well, it's always a good idea to have a sense of humour when it comes to painting, isn't it? You can't, it's impossible when you're doing something reasonably loose, it's impossible to reproduce what you did the time before. So you better let go of that one, Diane. It's interesting that when you put this pink in and it blends with the other colours like the green and so on, and you see that happening, it doesn't stay pink. It no longer looks like a baby's matinee jacket. It turns into something a little bit more sophisticated. These colours are so beautifully strong. I'm sure I haven't even begun to get close to what you can do with these colours. If you're a real, oh God, no, I mustn't say that. If you're a real artist. No, I am not Tracy Emin, but I'm still an artist. Okay, everyone happy now? I don't know. You know, labels, you know, don't do that. Don't label things. That's the thing. That's what I say to myself. The good thing about painting is, isn't it, that it takes your mind off of things. So, you know, it's hard to worry about the fact that this year you're going to be ticking over to another decade and you actually didn't want that. It's hard to think about those sorts of things when you're trying to concentrate on what colour to put on the paper next. So that's, yeah, we're covering the paper here and just trying to be more or less, like I said, random. And then I'm going to doodle on here, I think, and see what happens. Oh, that's a nice contrast there. We put some good green down the bottom. And let's put a bit more of this colour here. When you're going to doodle on something, you will want areas on the painting that are nice and strong, nice dark areas, so that, you know, your white and gold and so on, if you use that, are going to show up really well. I just thought I would put at the bottom here a curved shape. I don't know why. I like the pink because it causes the colours to separate from each other, and it allows you to have light areas much more easily than if you don't use that opaqueness. I'll put a bit more green in the middle there. And one of the fun things about watercolour painting is watching the colours mix and mingle on the paper. I think that bit there is a bit too much. I'm just going to put a little bit more brown in there. Well, it's like sort of burnt quinacridone gold, isn't it? Oh, here comes the rain. I think it's hailing. Okay, I just wanted to show you this. One of these paintings here is still wet. I just finished it and it's not dry yet. the other one I did yesterday, and it is completely dry. And I don't think that I can tell which one's which, actually, looking from above on the camera here. So I just wanted to show you that, because I keep saying that when these paints are dry, they're not really very different from what they are like when they're wet. And I think this more or less shows that to be the case. And the reason why that's useful is because if you are trying to paint anything vibrant, or if you're trying to get close in tonal value in order to, make a painting that's got some element of realism about it, it's really hard to have to take into consideration how much lighter it's going to dry when it's dry. This has been a bugbear of people using Winsor & Newton or Schminke or Daniel Smith paints, or all of those traditional ones. It's been the big bugbear for as long as I've been alive, that's for sure, and probably much longer than that. But these paints are much easier to predict what they're going to dry like. I think they must have done something to them that made them like this, obviously. I think that must be the case. So anyway, that's one of the best reasons for using Kuretake paints. Okay, so I've been looking at some ideas for what to do next, because you have to have something in your head, don't you? Even if it's going to be kind of intuitively done. And I'm going to use some sort of Australian Aboriginal art inspiration here. I've been looking at a few of their wonderful creations, just to give me a starting point. I'm going to use 3 round brushes probably to first of all do some paint on top of this paint, and then I'm going to finish up with some ink and see how that goes. So I've got a 3, 5 and 7 here, 3 different sizes of round Drawwell brushes. I said it all before about where to get them from, so I won't repeat myself in the description below. So yeah, I'm going to take the middle-sized one because I'm not quite sure what I really want, first of all. And let's pick up some rusty-coloured paint here. And I'm going to paint a circle on this obligingly light brown surface. This paint is very unctuous, It has a kind of thickness about it which is quite pleasing. It's like painting with peanut butter or honey or something like that. So you can enjoy that. Put some green in the middle. So that's a nice circle with 3 different colours in it. And I think I've got a guide here to this I came across. This is, the meaning of this is grass, some kind of grass, because it has a symbolic meaning in Aboriginal art. So we'll put another one here. I know quite a lot of people from Australia do watch the channel, which is wonderful. So maybe you might even find this a little bit interesting. So I'm going to just do some I don't know what I'm doing, but it doesn't matter, does it? So I think that was meant to be a sort of U shape like that. Yes, well, whatever. The thing is, when you're doing doodles, you can always come in and go over the top of it. Straighten it out, it doesn't matter. So let's have some more. Yeah, very good. Let us paint a wavy line. And maybe a green spiral. Well, that's very satisfying. Look at that. I like that colour green. don't know if you can hear the wind in the background. We have a, what do you call it, a noise cancelling feature on the editing, so it cuts out the background noise to a certain extent, in fact, largely. But it's very windy out there today, so you might be able to hear something, for which I'm sorry. Yes, interesting. I don't know anything about Aboriginal art, really. The only thing I know about Australian Aboriginal culture, well, I know a little bit, but not much. And I do know that they're very good at remembering things. Because they didn't write things down, they seem to have made these symbols using pieces of rock or stone or something like that. Anyway, I'm talking out of the back of my head, as we say. These quite rich brown, rusty colours are looking quite good on top of the background. If you had Posca pens, which I don't, you could do these design elements using those rather than having to use paint. It would come to much the same sort of thing, I think. Probably, although this might be a bit more organic, maybe. Yes, I'm looking forward to putting more shiny colours on top of these dark areas. I think that'll be really quite nice. So I discovered that some people are calling this kind of painting intuitive, which I suppose just means that you follow your inner voice or something. And just do whatever comes to mind, or more like comes to the brush. A good way of starting this is really to follow the lines that the paint created for you underneath. That sort of takes some of the decision making out of it. don't like this. I'm going to paint over the top of that one. It's too broken up. This one just wants to be painted gold. So when it's dry, I'll be able to do that. I need to think about these leaf motifs up here. Okay, and somebody suggested a different kind of white gel pen, a different make, and I've put it in the in my Amazon shop. So if you go to amazon.com/shop/Diane Antone Studio, you'll find it there. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But I'm going to get some myself and try them out. I think. Yeah, these little parallel lines like that are really quite effective. Something like this could take you ages. You could spend absolutely ages doing this really carefully. It's not the sort of thing you really want to hurry, is it? Look at that. That's good, isn't it? You can take this opaque, creamy coloured paint and you can paint over the top of dark brown, and it actually works. Just going to mention something. I have a friend here, me and Tamsin have got a friend here who has just started a little channel. She lives just down the road from us, and she would be very grateful if you would go and have a look at her little videos. They're just not narrated, they're just pictures of life in the French countryside. And there's a really cute one on there that I just saw today of some chicks, 1 day old little black chicks belonging to a little black hen. And if you like nature, then you might be interested in having a look at some of her little videos. She's just starting her channel. And then, of course, there's our one called From the Garden, which is similar. We haven't got any chicks, but we've got plenty of sheep. If you're ever in need of a nice sheep, you'll find them on our channel at From the Garden. So I'm just going to put a bit more light colour on this one. This is all very experimental. And when you put the colour on where it's still wet, you're going to get a kind of blendy sort of thing going on. quite exciting, isn't it? I think what's quite nice about this is that you can put a darker shade of the colour underneath on top, and it just gives you a lot of depth. Personally, I'm quite bored with the whole idea of painting the things I've painted all my life. It's time to do something else while there's still time. I finished a sock last night. I've been knitting. I learnt a new way of knitting. Oh, I have to tell you, I've been knitting since I was about 5, when I learnt. I taught myself, I think. I don't remember anyone teaching me. But I've got little fat fingers. I've got short fingers and not very flexible. So I could never do that thing where you flip the wool over the needle with your with your right forefinger. And I've always felt very inadequate about that. But the other day I came across a channel on YouTube. YouTube is so wonderful, isn't it? Where there's a lady from Finland, and I will put a link in the description below because I can't remember her name. She's a designer of knitwear. She's very young. She's, goes against you a bit. But anyway, in Finland, they do it completely differently. They knit using the left hand to put the wool around the needle, and it's really interesting. It seems very clumsy at first, but after a while, you start to quite enjoy it. And it takes the strain out of the right shoulder, which is really quite good. And so I've been practicing using that new method. Anyway, so yeah, I've been knitting socks because I like to have lovely, warm, thick, chunky, probably you'd say ugly, but anyway, they're warm socks to wear in the winter here, made from my sheep's fleeces, which I spin. They take quite a while to do, but I've been wearing a pair I made last year most of the winter, and we certainly needed it. Yeah. Okay, so it's kind of gets to the point where you sort of think to yourself, should I stop here? I think I probably will stop quite soon and go on to the pen work. Not that you absolutely have to do that. Pen, In fact, once I've finished with what I'm doing here, I think I'm going to stop and decide whether or not I actually do want to do any pen work after all, because I might not. It's the first time I've ever done anything quite like this. Using the, these kinds of motifs. Yeah, you really could carry on indefinitely. It's quite a good idea to repeat the same kind of pattern in more than one part of your design. So I've got these little lines here and going round and here as well. Two colours on the brush at the same time there. Well, I think if I carry on much more, I'm going to start making it look very crowded. I'm just going to do another spiral here. And you know, I don't think I'm going to put any gold or silver or black or anything like that on this. I think I'm going to probably leave it. You can do, with this Kuretake paint, you can do nice little dots like this too. Surprising, actually. You can do big dots and really quite small ones. You just need to load the brush quite well. So there's plenty of paint on it, and you can keep going. Yep, you can do that. Lots of dots. This one up here needs a light vein, doesn't it? And this one too, probably. Maybe this one. Sometimes light, sometimes dark. I think probably we need something here. Okay, I'm going to let that dry and then decide what's going to be done next, if anything. Okay, so here we go, painting without any preconceived ideas or plans. Let's start. This is phthalo blue. I'm painting on hot pressed paper, cold pressed paper. This is Lapis Fidelis, which is by Arches, I think. And I'm just going to put colours in and let them do their thing. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? That's a lovely green. And it's blending. And this kind of paper, it blends differently. This is my practice. Okay, I'll show you this here. This is just copy paper or something similar, you know, sulfite paper. And it has a completely different effect when it hits the paper, the paint. When you're on cold pressed paper like this, it behaves differently. So that's my first circle, and we'll do another one. You know how Monet, do you remember Monet? How he painted for the last, I don't know how many years of his life. He got stuck with water lilies and his flowers in his garden, and he did nothing but paint the same subject again and again. I think you could get like that with circles, couldn't you? you could say, well, why do I need to paint anything else? Because at the end of the day, you know, it's all about colour, and if it's all about the process rather than the result, then what does it matter what you start off with? You could say. So you just do your circle or whatever shape. You could do squares, of course, and let things flow and forget about all your worries and your woes. Wasn't that a song? Pack up your troubles in an old kit bag. That was it. I remember that from Family Favourites. And what was it called? That programme that they used to put on the radio in the mornings when everyone was supposed to be at home doing their housework. Not workers' playtime, that was something else. I'll think of it in a minute. Housewife's Choice, I think it was. People from England will remember. Yes, those were the days. Those were the days. Yes. Oh, sun's come out again. I have to take the opportunity to mention that because there isn't much else I can say at the moment. I'm just putting, I don't want to put that there, I'm going to put that there. Just putting uneven circles using a limited palette of Prussian blue, cyan, brilliant green, May green, and permanent green and olive green in a random fashion. I like this bright green. You don't often get the opportunity to use that bright green, do you, when you're painting landscapes or things like that? Because, you know, it says in all the books, it's not very natural colour, so don't use it. Why not? Why not? Wouldn't it be a different world if the grass was that colour? I mean, wouldn't that be fun? And this, when you're doing this, you'll see all the subtle colours come emerging out of your primary strokes. You know, this is an absolutely gorgeous green there, isn't it? And you can just add lots more water and let things flow like that. And one of the best things that I've seen done is to just drop water in to these circles and let it push the paint around. You'd be surprised what might happen. The drops won't go outside of where you've painted. I'm going to put something in the middle of that too, a colour. Just let that run around, and here too. And if you feel you've got too much and it hasn't worked quite the way you wanted it to, you can always lift it out with a bit of tissue like this. I'll just show you. I think this probably might work fine, but it might not, so we'll lift it out a little bit. For this kind of thing, you definitely need to have your 5-year-old hat on. Absolutely. So we'll put a nice olive... Whoops, was that a bird? There are 8 hawks on the window. The birds do not need to fly into the window. So we just let that draw up and down. If you use plenty of water, you get lots of much more subtle blends, and you start to get planets, you know. Let's use that colour here, shall we? A bit more of this one. And then we want to come over here, I think, perhaps with a bit more of this one. I say I think, but probably best not to think too much. And probably could do with filling in some of the gaps so that it goes closer to the paper top, the edges of the paper, maybe. I haven't done that before. I think that's sort of putting some behind kind of thing. Clocks went forward in here in France last night. In here? Yes, in here too. We put our clocks forward. So we're all out of sync at the moment. Don't know what time of day it is. We've got some areas here where we've got backgrounds, and that's something you don't get really when you use the Kuretake paints, which is one of the reasons I like them. You don't get the backgrounds quite so much, which is something to consider. And yeah, I know it looks pretty awful at the moment, but it's fine, I think. I'm going to dry it in a minute and then come back and do the next thing. Okay, where's my hairdryer? Okay, so here we have a background. I think that's probably the most flattering thing we can call it. Lots of lovely greens on there, and I'm going to do something a little bit, what's the word? Back to front, yes. So I have a background with lots of colour in it, and I'm going to take a white pen. Wish me luck. I don't know whether this is going to work or not. This is a Posca white pen. It's a 0.7 millimeter pen that is bizarrely called the PC1M, bullet shaped, and it does paint. Once it's got started, it'll do white lines. It doesn't actually immediately jump into action, funnily enough. I've noticed this. It starts off kind of white, and so I'm going to have to give it a good shake first and try it out on something that doesn't matter. Hang on a second, I can find something that's got some colour in it. Is that going to work yet? I should have done this before. I think that's it. It's working now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is a design of leaves on here, and I'm going to draw them as if this was a pencil. I'm going to draw the leaves in place on here in white. Okay, and so this is not rocket science, as you probably realise. So this is my basic I think I've done a few of these before, haven't I? Basic branch with some leaves on. So we start off with one of those to get us in the mood. And they tend to get small. I have a inability to not be completely realistic, to be somewhat less than unrealistic sometimes. So they tend to be smaller at the top often. So we'll do another one here, and we'll do these ones a little bit more rounded and sort of opposite one another. Sorry about the scritchy scratchy sounds. And I'm not thinking too much about how this is going to be done. I'm just sort of heading for it. I'll put some little stems on these ones. I'm not putting any veins in at the moment. Okay, and then perhaps we'll do here maybe one like this. All of this is such good practice when it comes to control of the pen and developing, good muscle memory so that you can trace over a line without going off. It all seems very difficult at first, but eventually you get the hang of it. So we'll do a nice swirl there like that one, shall we? And do some pointed leaves like this. And over here, this is a nice colour here that we've got, isn't it? Let's put these ones longer and thinner, perhaps. And then maybe we'll take one up the back here, going behind, and perhaps that can have really long leaves. There we are. And then perhaps we could have, coming in from the side, we could have some smaller ones. Maybe one coming down from up the top here. And there's a nice space here. We could put something with some berries on it, couldn't we, here? Let's say. Okay, and so there we are. That's some leaf outlines. And now I have to decide what to do for the next step. Oh, well, we could have some more little ones, I suppose, in these spaces, if there are any spaces. We have one coming down from the top here. Right. Okay, so we're going to carry on with a bit of mental serenity here, or whatever you like to call it. I'm going to open up my Coliro pearl colours, gold and silver, made in Germany here, and I've put some water on them so they've softened up a little bit. And then I'm going to just pick up some gold. I'm going to try and do this reasonably loosely and just paint the outlines. It's just I don't know why, but outlines seem to be a thing for me at the moment. So just they're not tightly following the line of anything, just leaving it kind of loose and see what happens really, see how it looks. And come up the middle there as well. These are different colours, these golds. Some of them are a bit darker. So this one, for example, is darker, so you can kind of mix them up a bit. Perhaps put a darker one there. And the paint underneath from the Posca pen doesn't interfere, seemingly. We could make them a bit wider if we want. Perhaps you could sort of have half of it solid and half of it open if you wanted to, something like that. And then we won't do all of them like that, but maybe, I don't know, one of the ones over here, we'll do that in gold as well. And paint that one solid, and maybe that one too. But the nice thing about doing them open is that you can see what's behind, can't you? It doesn't cover up the nice watercolor effects that you've put in. This is kind of silver. You could use, you could have done this, I could have done this with silver or gold pen, I suppose, but the lines would have been much thinner, wouldn't they? Try not to get my hand on it and smudge it. It's not a good idea. And I'm wondering what to do for the rest of the leaves. I'm wondering whether to use brush pens, watercolor paint brush pens, or at least I think they're paint, maybe they're ink, I don't know. I think we might do these berries down here in gold. And maybe these ones up here, little ones. You can leave some of the white lines showing underneath. Just go down the middle like that. And I was woken up in the middle of the night last night by a thunderstorm of all things. It's March, it's France. It's not meant to thunder and lightning in the middle of the night. I sometimes wonder whether we were moved somewhere and we weren't looking, because the weather here doesn't seem to have anything to do with what it used to be like. Okay. So I am definitely thinking that that's enough of the metallics. So I'm just going to grab a handful of greens and blues and these poetique I've got them sorted into bunches of greens. So I know that most of these are going to be somewhat in the same colour family. And now we have to decide what we can do with those. So, I wonder whether a bit of blue would be a good idea. What do you think? Oh, that's mauve. That's probably not quite the right thing. What about this colour green? Okay. It's a nice contrast there on that yellowish colour underneath. The thing with this kind of work is, you know, you don't want to rush it. Nothing worse than sitting down to paint and thinking, oh gosh, I've got to get that done. Because luckily, most of us who are retired, we don't have that pressure. Okay, so I'm going to risk it and put lines inside these shapes. I don't know if this is going to work or not. Yeah, well, why not? And I suppose if you go over, you can go over the silver and it becomes metallic blue. Oh, that's interesting. I haven't thought of doing that before. Not sure if that's a good idea or not. But how else are you going to find out if you don't try it out? Well, interesting. Let's find another colour. What about some green? There's no reason why you couldn't do this with paint. You don't need these pens. It's not essential. These ones we could do a bit more delicate up here. Just use the tip of the pen. And then that's harder to do with a paintbrush. But you can do it. I mean, with a traditional paintbrush. The dog is snoring. So funny listening to dogs snoring. Well, that's that one. And of course, you can always take your white pen, and here we could do more lines if we wanted to on these ones to finish them off. I suppose we could call this reverse colouring in, couldn't we? Where you do the background and then you basically work on top of it. I'm going to go around these circles, straighten them out a little bit. Okay, so then I think we need something for this one up here. I wonder if we could go for... That's too pale. Maybe, do you know, blue would work? That could work. Yeah, that's that one. And I think the dark blue probably would be quite good over here as well. And what should we do in here? Should we just do some fine lines in dark blue in those, shall we? I think we probably want some berries over here as well. Something like that there, maybe. I don't know whether this one needs a little bit more dark, perhaps. Something like that. And perhaps we need some berries over here somewhere. Perhaps here. Okay, and you could, some people, when they do this kind of thing, they add other, what you would call additional shapes in a shadowy colour in the background, and we could do that. So, for example, with this light green, we can come in with a spiral or two over here, perhaps. It always dries a little bit lighter. Spirals are a very satisfactory shape. I think they can add quite a lot. Take it over where two colours join. And then once you start doing that, quite often you'll feel that you want to add more leaves, so more branches. You can do them in a in a matching colour to the background. So like here, that green goes over there nicely. And you could have a few more down here, perhaps. And what you're doing then is you're just building up texture. Giving everything a bit more context. And try another colour. It's a bit like they say about getting old, it's not for the faint-hearted. Well, reverse colouring in isn't for the faint-hearted, because once you've gone too far, you've gone too far, and that's all there is to it. So, but you know, what is there to lose except a piece of paper, as they say? Could try some in a yellowish tone like that you can't see very much, but you know it's there in the background. And I suppose if there's something you don't like, you can always change it. I'm not completely convinced about these ones here. Of course, it's always the biggest ones and the most important that you feel, I'm not sure about that. But what you could do if you don't like what you've done, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to paint over it. I am going to get my Kuretake set, because I know that that's pretty much opaque. Find a brush buried here, and don't know what colour to use. So we'll just put this on to sort of even it out, because I think it was just too much. And we'll see what happens when that dries. That's going to be a little bit lighter, probably. Not much, but a little bit. We can reduce the amount of metallic if we feel that we've gone too far with that. Right, okay, I think I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll see what we see. Okay, so that worked, that's fine, that's dry now, and I'm just coming back in with the Posca pen, and I'm going to put some dots over these leaves, because why not? I haven't got any dots anywhere else, so I think we need a few dots to give it a bit of a lift, like that. And don't think we need anywhere else. We could put a few veins in these, or we could sharpen up the edges a bit, but I quite like those like that. It's a little bit rough and ready, and yeah, I think that'll do. Maybe we could put a few dots on here too, but they won't show up very much because it's gold. We don't want to go mad, do we? So let's get started, as all the best painters say. Tamsin had an idea this morning. She said to me, why don't you do it like spatter? And I said, ooh, that would be a bit avant-garde, wouldn't it? So we'll do that. We've got the two blues. You see, we have blue here. And so we'll have some blue. You just have to start somewhere. This is the thing. And let it go. So we're doing spatter. Let's put some more of that blue over here, because there's not so much on this piece, so we'll just do that. And then I'm going to waste a whole bunch of paint by washing it off. And then let's pick up this colour. And then how about we just take that colour and do a line. And then how about we take the next colour along and do another line. Maybe we join it like that. And then maybe we take the next colour. Maybe the brown. You can see how they all link up because they've all got contaminated with each other. So that's fine though, because that's what I wanted really. I'm not even cleaning off my brush. And then we could, let's put some more dots here, maybe. Give the brush a bit of a wash. Let's pick up some of this creamy colour. And just do whatever comes into your head. And then maybe we'll use the brush on the side rather than just using the point. And When I come in with just water, we're going to get a more transparent effect. So if we like that, we might think of perhaps joining up, just using water, no paint. We can drip water in and let the whole thing run. I'm standing up to do this. I don't usually stand up when I'm painting. But sometimes when you're doing something like this, I mean, it's just up to you really. But we're getting some really interesting and now I'm going to go with some gold now. And oops, open sesame. Let's put some gold in the middle here. This one's a darker one, darker gold. Okay, and to stop it from being too sort of wishy-washy, I think I'll keep those. We probably want something darker thing, so I'm not sure if that's going to be dark enough. Maybe I'll mix that with a bit of purple to make a really, or maybe this colour would be better actually. I'm not sure. Well, why not? Because it's going to run anyway, isn't it? So we'll just put some of that in. Now it's time to sit down, I think. Do some furry blobs like that. I have no idea what's going to happen with this, but then that's usually the case when we do these paintings. We do this kind of thing, and then we think to ourselves, But what you can do if you don't like it, you can always, as I've said before many times, lift out, or you could say to yourself, it's not because I don't like it, it's because I just want to modify it. So using your Bounty quicker picker upper, you can lighten some of the areas and at the same time give texture. So just dabbing in, and if you think, oh no, that was the wrong choice of colour, no it wasn't, because it's just going to lead you to do some pressing out. But future-wise, we can go in and put lots of lovely lines on top. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to dry it, and then I'm going to come back and do the top layer. Okay, so that's dry, and quite happy with the way that's worked out so far. But now I'm just going to be quiet. Just going to pick up some more gold here, and on top of these lovely dark areas, I'm going to do some stripes and circles and things like that using gold. just wherever it seems to call for it. It's just Zen. And you can obviously do spirals and things like that. If you think that one of the areas where the lines have blurred isn't particularly beautiful, you can always improve that by taking advantage of it and painting right over the top and linking things together. And if you've got an area where you've made a smudge, which I always have, and just take that as an invitation to paint right over the top. Cover it all up, that whole section that's smudged. Not even sure how I did that, but so we'll make this into a gold section. Because otherwise, how can you possibly make up your mind what you're going to do? It's very difficult. I might put a line part way along there and then break that line, for example. I come in there and try to tidy that up a little bit. Okay, and we can have some more lines here, for example. Maybe this is a silvery colour, we could put silver up here. And see how this whole area here, which we put the liquid paint into, has dried much more shiny than it looked as if it was going to be in the beginning. So I'm going to stop putting the paintbrush on for a bit, and I'm going to switch to a white pen. I'm not going to use the Posca pen because that made an obnoxious noise when that was scratching on the watercolor paper, although the Posca pen is fantastic on shiny things like plastic or glass or metal. Look, I wrote my name on my shaving brush, just in case my husband wants to borrow it. He knows it's mine, not his. Okay, so now with the white pen, let's do some dots. And we can doodle away now to our heart's content, just slowly working on this. And I think I'd probably be inclined to turn it from left to right from time to time so that you can do it whichever way is more natural to you. So I think these little close together parallel lines are quite effective. They don't need to be dead straight. And just do them until you reach a point where you think that's enough, and then maybe turn the paper around again. And if you sort of think, oh yes, I should balance that out with some more over this side, perhaps. And I honestly think it's a really good idea to have an example of somebody else's work or something that you've seen that you admire, or even just a map with shapes on, you know, whatever, handy to give you inspiration, because it's actually quite hard to think of things to doodle when you're actually doodling it until you get into the flow. You know, it's people are talking about the flow these days. Well, it's all to do with brain waves and alpha waves. And I remember many years ago when I was living in Germany, I used to teach in an English language school in Friedrichshafen in southern Germany. And we used a method there for teaching, which was invented by Mr. Lozanov. And the whole idea of teaching English in the way he did it was to get people relaxed and into a mood of relaxation. And in those days, we're talking about 1988, the idea of meditation and relaxation was not as commonly known about as it is now. And the way we used to teach, it was quite interesting. We usually taught small groups, and they were often German businessmen who'd come away on a course. Their company had said to them, "You must learn to speak English. It is the language of the future." And they were quite right. They did talk like that. So they came to us, and the first thing we did was we got them to take on a different identity. If it was, Herr Schmidt, who was the managing director of Alpla in Bregenz in Austria or something, you made him take on the identity of John Smith, who was a carpenter living in Cambridge. And he had to, all the time he was on this residential course for a week, he had to, theoretically anyway, behave as if he was that person. So he left Mr. Schmidt at the door, and he pretended to be John Smith from Cambridge. And the thing was, it gave them freedom to express themselves and to try out speaking English, because they weren't so embarrassed as they were about speaking English if they still had their German status behind them. And it did work. Anyway, so what we then did, once we'd made them into Mr. Smith instead of Herr Schmidt, we put them in relaxation chairs and we made them do meditation. And so you would read out this meditation piece and play music. And we used to play Mozart or Bach or one of those pieces of music, which is very relaxing. And the idea was to get them, and I'm coming back to where we started, into the alpha brain state. And once you get into that state, you can become creative. And all the time you're operating with beta waves, you're trying to control what you do far too much, and you're thinking about what if and oh dear and oh no and why not and all the rest of it. And it's not the same. So in other words, what I'm saying is, when I do this kind of thing, if I don't get into that kind of mental state, and that's why I ramble, because when I'm in that mental place, I can remember things like the Mr. Lazarnoff and the company that I worked for in southern Germany, and I can tell you about it. But if I don't get into that state, I can't think of two words to say in a row. Anyway, yes, it was called the Lernbrücke, Learning Bridge, die Lernbrücke, and Detlef was the name of the man I worked for. And it was really fun, because we used to take these people on trips, and one that we did, we went up into the mountains to a hotel, and oh yes, we had saunas. And did you know that the Germans, when they have saunas, they take all their clothes off? I was shocked. My goodness, I was shocked. Yes. Anyway, that was then, and this is now. That was fun. It's quite nice to think about it. I don't often. Germany's changed now. It was a wonderful place. And while I was there, the Berlin Wall came down. You'd be able to date the year it was from that. And everything started to change. Yes. Anyway, this is coming along, isn't it? It's going somewhere. I'm not sure where, but it's fun to do. You can do this in front of the TV. Oh, I'll tell you what we're watching now. We're watching, what are we watching? Foyle's War. I don't know if you have that in America. It's set in 1940 in England on the south coast, in Sussex. Used to be called Sussex, now it's called East Sussex, and West Sussex, but it's an area of the country that I'm very familiar with, having lived and worked in Sussex for a long time. And it's good. It's got Michael Kitchen plays the policeman, the detective chief constable, or whatever he is, chief inspector. I don't know what his name is. And Honeysuckle Weeks is his sidekick, who I think is very cute. She's lovely. Yes, okay, so I think I'm going to put some leaves up here, just a small branch of leaves here. Anyway, so I was going to say, you can do this while you're watching television. I used to run a business in England just after my son was born in 1975. I decided that I needed to do something from home to improve our income, and I started a little business making maternity clothes. So I designed and made and sold. And of course, it's much harder work than you think it's going to be when you start a business, as anybody who has started a YouTube channel knows. There's a lot more work involved than you think there's going to be. Anyway, so I ended up kind of really working very hard, and often in the evenings I would be ironing, watching the television and ironing, that is to say pressing things that had been ordered so that I could get the order out the next day. So I heard a lot of television. I didn't really watch it. I just listened to it while I was ironing. Okay, I think this bit needs something in it, doesn't it? I think it could well be that it needs another plant. So let's just put some leaves in here. The white goes over the gold reasonably well. This one seems to be working quite well, actually. Somebody posted a picture of a painting that they'd done similar to this in the group. She'd used one of mine as a starting point, and she said it's hard to know when to stop. Her painting was beautiful, as everyone's is. There's some lovely, lovely work in the Diane Antone Studio members group. There's some really lovely things coming in every day, and it's great to see. And it is, isn't it? Sometimes it's quite difficult to know where to stop. What shall I do? Oh yes, I was going to say maybe we want some darker dots. So I might go to, well, I have got this bronze one here. This is, I didn't mention this, a Signo Uniball broad white gel pen. This is the same, and this is in bronze. So I'm not sure whether that's the colour that we want to add. So I'll just try it out in the centres of these little white circles here. It might be quite nice. We could try some vertical lines here, for example. Yeah, and then maybe we could do some little dots here, sort of slightly ovoid dots. That's quite nice because it's not a big contrast with what's underneath, so it's just adding texture really. And maybe we'll turn it upside down. For a bit, we could have some little squares. My pen seemed to want to do a square there for some reason, I'm not sure. why. And maybe we'll have some more of these. Oops. Put some up here. I don't know if there's any sort of rules about this kind of painting. I don't think people are keen on rules these days, are they? But sometimes you might think, oh, one of the things I probably could do would be to link one side of the painting with the other, perhaps. By, you know, this is all about linkage, isn't it, from side to side. And we could strengthen these by going between the white lines with a darker pen like this. I mean, you can just go on and on and on. Very interesting process, and what you end up with, you know, I'm going to be interested to see when I redo this one, when I do it again, which I will, I might even do it today, to see how differently it turns out from the other one that I did. And it won't be even vaguely similar, I don't suppose. I like this bit here with that white. I like that bit that I've left there. Well, actually, I'm quite liking a lot of it, actually. Maybe I want to fill in these leaves. These pens are ideal because often when people do this kind of painting, they're doing it on a much bigger scale, but we're doing it quite small. This is only A4 or 10.5 by, 10 by 8.5 paper. And so to do the lines in brushwork is probably a bit tricky. But these pens have a very powerful effect, don't they? Let me see. Perhaps we should put something. What do you think we should put something there? I always remember Roland Hilder, who said, make sure that in any painting you do, doesn't matter what the subject is, make sure there is an area which is not fussed over. He didn't use that word, but areas where the eye can rest. So this would be one of those areas where it's just calm, so that the whole thing doesn't sort of overwhelm you. So I think I'm going to stop there, actually, with that in mind, because I don't think I want to overwhelm anybody. So this is one of those paintings that you could choose which way to put it. That's probably the right way up, but it could go like that too. And it could be, it sort of looks a little bit like underwater, doesn't it? Like with plants growing and, you know, weeds growing up and so on. So, you know, there we are.